Yes, so now I think that we have to call some of the people on stage because I have to moderate this panel session. So I'm going to be calling, unless I'm going to be calling Johan first from the European Commission, Policy Officer Clean Energy Transitions at DG RTD, so Cluster 5 for those. I didn't have any seating plan, so Justo Garcia, that has been the master of ceremony until now, so he's the head of financing strategy for battery recycling projects at Orano, that you know very well. Franz Geyer from BMW, head of technology zero emission. Andreas Forgang from Vianode is the VP for sustainability and public affairs. And then we have Antoine Driocourt from CEA. He's the project manager. He's been telling us a lot already today about respect. Enrique Moliner Santisteve, sorry for the mistake, is the senior sustainability technologist at Lomartov. And then Guillaume Barbet from Seva Logistics project manager. So I realize the gender balance is maybe not a strong suit today, but we'll get better next year. I don't know if I... Okay, it's good that you corrected to compensate. Okay, so I don't have a timer next to me, so Elisabetta, if you see that we are going off track, please be very severe with us. The way I would propose to structure the panel is to ask each of you the same question. It may sound boring, but I just wanted to have an opening question to a bit understand your position, because we have the Commission, we have different industrial players from different parts of the value chain, we have the RTO, so I think it may be interesting to hear about you. And then we will dive into a specific question. But my first question is that you have seen the EU battery regulation slide many times today, so it's a very nice timeline with lots of ambitious targets on different types of KPIs. I think this is the way to go if we want to, of course, give an impetus to drive the construction of a battery recycling industry. It may not be sufficient, but there will be a question on that later. What I would like to understand from each of you, and I will start, of course, from the left, and then we will give Johan the opportunity to maybe build on that or give a few reflections, is if you look at all these targets, which one do you believe is very ambitious or too ambitious? And how do you see technology and innovation helping us to get there? So, because today we are very much technology driven in this panel and in this presentation, so technology can help, but of course technology is further developed. And if, I will start with Guillaume, if there is one ambitious KPI that you believe is very ambitious and that technology can really help get to.
Thank you. So on my side, I think that in the battery regulations, the battery passport will be something really ambitious to accomplish, as there is several stakeholders among the value chain that are involved in that battery passport. This is hopefully, I think it's something great because it will ease the traceability of the battery among the supply chain. But as there is many information to be shared, many stakeholders that will have to be included in the creation of the battery passport, it will make it quite ambitious to accomplish. But I think this is a good news and good things, and it will help the traceability and the logistic of the battery.
Yes, sure. Well, I think that the material recovery targets are quite ambitious, but I'm pretty sure that my colleagues will talk about it. So I would say also the digital passport, and also one challenge that is coming soon, which is the carbon footprint declarations. And yeah, this might be something easier for big players, but for small players might be something difficult, and I assume that technology can contribute, especially digitalization technologies, Internet of Things, monitoring, sensoring, big data analytics, and so on. But yet this can be, as I said, easier for large companies. For small players, maybe they need some support. And so in some of the previous presentations, some colleagues talk about the skills. So we need the skills not only for the sustainability issue, for the carbon footprinting, but also to deal with this new digitalization technologies. So I think that capacity building, training programs, and these kind of things will be a key to be success on this. Yeah, it is.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So on my side, I think so I will do a comparison of the EU battery directive with the WE directive on the recycling of photovoltaic modules. So today there is a recovery target for photovoltaic module around 85%, so quite high value, but there is no specific target for silicon. And in the last 10 years in Europe, there was absolutely no recycling of silicon metal. So it shows that in the battery recycling, in the battery directive, this combination of average efficiency target and to fix a target for specific metals definitely makes sense and will help to recover these specific metals. The targets are quite ambitious. We have seen in the presentation today that we may have some losses in the hydrometallurgical treatment. I think it's really important to bring some innovation in the pretreatment to reduce the amount of impurities of black mass entering the hydrometallurgical process. And this would lead to a reduction of the losses in the process.
For the targets, if one of the metal would be for you the main pain point, which metal would it be?
Nickel and cobalt, I think.
Nickel and cobalt.
To me, no target is too ambitious. I think it's ambitious, the whole battery regulation, but it should be. To pick out one, I have to echo Enrique and Guillaume. That's the battery passport. It's very ambitious, but to me, mainly because there are some challenges in sharing information throughout the value chain that needs to be overcome, and that has to be overcome by industry partnerships, which is going to be quite tricky. And I know there's work going on there, but that's challenging.
Yeah, I can, of course, from my CA head or task force leader, digital product passport, I can comment to this, but I would take this on a more broader picture. For me, the main challenge to overcome is really the successful implementation of the regulation, meaning that all parts of the value chains are really, let's say, contributing to achieve the political goals, but also to really, in best case, accelerate the economy. This is more or less the most thing to overcome from my point of view. And there are, of course, a lot of detailed topics which are in a challenge in itself. But I think the most real topic to overcome, and these are goals. Let's see where we end up in reaching them and what probably are further support mechanisms to come. But nevertheless, I think the key part that we really need to focus on is a clever, sufficient implementation of the regulation. Yeah, it's a volatile geopolitical topic, of course, and in this area, implementation of regulation will then remain for a time. So if we really stick to implementation right now, that should not be hinder us tomorrow or the day after, and should even accelerate even. Yeah.
Extra one. Justo?
Okay, and I think it's effectively there are a lot of ambitions. So in terms of effectively battery passport, as has been mentioned, so we have to share some information, and so there are sensitive information. Also, all the due diligence that are needed. So it effectively could be difficult to access for that. But I think for the industrial point of view, one thing that it's important. It's to support the recycling community and the industry, because if we have no industrial to be able to recycle in Europe, we could not achieve all the targets that have been in the regulation. So I think a strong support to this industry, because the problem of the industry is that the recycling will be occur after the use of the batteries, so 10 years after, 15 years after the entry in the market, and this lifetime is could be complicated, because you have to invest and to develop now the technologies that will be needed and be in operation in 10 or 50 years. And so we have a problem of the ramp up, and so effectively, so how to access to the material, to the battery. And so, but the key point is we need to have these plants in Europe.
Okay, and now the difficult mission comes to Johan. If there are any things that you want to support or that you don't agree with, or from your policy officer head on.
No, I think all the points mentioned are very valid. I take note of your comments on the battery passport. It is going to be a major undertaking. My colleague has already mentioned that we have a project running on the first implementation of the digital battery passport, and we expect that this is going to learn us a lot about the implementation. However, it is true that tracking, for instance, the provenance of all the raw materials, tracking the CO2 footprints of all the raw materials is going to be very difficult. We also know that the whole implementation, the infrastructure, the blockchain approach behind it is also going to take a lot of work. So it is going to be a learning process for all of us, including the OEMs. Nevertheless, I think in the long run, it will certainly support the European industry, because it is going to help us weed out, so to speak, the dirtiest batteries from the European market. So it is going to help us also to, well, if, of course, on condition that we do develop the greener batteries in Europe, which I firmly believe, that is going to support European industry. In terms of the recycling targets, I think this is not a static document in any case. As already mentioned this morning, there is no target for graphite, which is very relevant. LFP is largely unaddressed by the batteries regulation. And then we also need to think of all of the future technologies, including sodium ion. So I would certainly expect that there will be a reality check in a few years, and that new elements are going to be added to this battery passport.
I think it's a good point, because the question was about how can technology help us deliver on the obligations that we get with the battery regulation. But of course, the battery regulation is not something frozen, and it also needs to adapt to the fact that technologies in battery chemistries will be evolving, and we don't have a target on graphite. LFP is quite unaddressed. Solid state batteries, at some point, they will come. Sodium ion batteries are also here to stay. So this battery regulation is here to stay, but it will have to evolve. One point I think that also we forget to communicate about is that we are kind of pioneers and trailblazing, because batteries are not the only application that contains critical metals. CO2 footprint is important for batteries, but also maybe for electrolyzers, fuel cells, electronics. So actually, we are cooking up a legislation that will be actually the baseline for maybe other obligations in other types of value chains. And this is something that is quite impressive, I have to say. Hans.
That's absolutely right, especially when it comes to the battery passport, which is more or less a blueprint for passports to come. And another topic is the CO2 topic. We have standards already out there, which are counting, for example, on PPAs, but there's a new way coming out from the battery regulation, which probably has some difficulties in its execution, because if the the solid let's say business model for the energy transition is let's say busted, then there can be projections on the decarbonization, but where is the money and the motivation coming from to do it if PPAs or direct links do not contribute on the private side anymore? So these are really topics that need to be very carefully designed and implemented. And as I said, the battery passport is a blueprint for passports to come. And I said it already before, for SMEs, the backbone of our industry, we really need to be careful what to implement, because right now they are only seeing the administrative burden without any benefit for themselves. And this will in the end hinder business instead of accelerating it.
The general question is, when is setting the bar high too high, right? And you need to make sure everyone can follow that ambitions. And also, it's true that most people that are in PV and wind and electronics and hydrogen are not very much aware of the battery regulation, although at some point it's going to fall on them as a blueprint for their sector. So maybe that's also something that we, from the battery field, when we meet others from other fields, we should maybe also try to create bridges and communicate with them so that they know they get better ready. I have no idea how we are doing on time, but I would just continue with maybe more specific questions to some of you, because you are not involved in respect with the same kind of activities. So I just wanted to maybe a bit tailor-made some questions to you. I will start with Justo. The respect project, of course, this is very important. How can you summarize its contributions to actually the key policies that we have in Europe and that we want to strengthen, like resilience, competitiveness, and strategic autonomy?
As I mentioned previously, so recycling is indispensable for the security and sustainability of the CRMA supply for the clean energy transition. So it's the key message, because the recycling could provide us so the secondary resources that will be needed for the future production of batteries, but also the CRM, it's also needed for the other industry for the energy transition. For respect project, as has been demonstrated by Antoine, provide us some good insight at this moment, because we develop several recycling routes, so the conventional route, and so the direct route, and so we provide some results that are very encouraging to demonstrate that we could achieve the main targets of the regulation. So that's important to highlight that. And so respect project, but also the other project of the Horizon Europe project could demonstrate that we could achieve, or if it's difficult to achieve some targets. So it's important to continue this effort to support the industry to fill the gap for the next steps.
Maybe one point that also sometimes crosses my mind is that when we talk about circularity, it's not only about recycling, obviously, and what you can see, for example, in BEPA is that when we develop advanced materials, we have more and more emphasis now on reducing the CRM content, because circularity starts at the design phase, and of course it finishes with the recycling, and it's good that we can cover both the upstream and the downstream part of the circularity together.
Yes, of course, and the recycling is important effectively to retrieve the material, but the first idea is to reintroduce this material in the new production for the same application, but as effectively there are some evolution in the chemistries, some material will not be needed with the same amount in the future. And so, for example, effectively, we increase in some batteries, we increase in some chemistry, we increase the nickel, but we reduce the cobalt. So effectively, in 10 years, we'll access to material with higher content of cobalt, but it will be needed for the future production. But this copper could be cobalt, sorry, could be used for other application, and so that it's important also to highlight, not only for the same industry, but so for other industry. So recycling could effectively the second resources for raw material, not only for the EV battery when we speak about the battery, but for all the industry in the for that work for the energy transition.
It's very much systems thinking, systematic thinking. I think it's important to stress it. It's not just recycling of batteries operating alone in a silo, obviously. Coming back to CRMA, we heard about direct recycling. I've heard about it for many years, and I try to follow the topic. It's very exciting, I have to say. We have, of course, to be able to come to an industrialization of such a technology. Now you are about halfway at respect, if I'm not mistaken. So what do you see as the main big industrial challenges if tomorrow somebody wanted to say, okay, let's go direct and let's industrialize this technology? What is the big pain points that you envisage?
Well, I think the main challenge for direct recycling is what makes direct recycling attractive. It's at the same time you are a recycler, meaning that you need to be able to deal with the diversity and heterogeneity of waste stream, and you need to be able to treat high volumes. And at the same time, you are a manufacturer of active material synthesis. And for this, you need to perfectly control the quality of the input material entering your process. And somehow here, there is a kind of contradiction. So from my point of view, it could be quite difficult for a recycler on its own to implement a direct recycling process for scraps, for instance, because we will see that all scraps are different from one gigafactory to another. What I see as a possibility is that cell manufacturers sees direct recycling as an opportunity, and that some joint ventures are created between a cell manufacturer and maybe a provider of a direct recycling process. And this way, the recycler will have a really good knowledge on the input material. And I think this is the more realistic scenario to see the emergence of direct recycling technologies at industrial scale.
And so, for example, the high scrap rates that we see as a major bottleneck and a problem for gigafactories in Europe could actually be one driver for a direct recycling approach?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. But you need to have a really good collaboration between recycler and OEMs. And today, if you answer to a tender for the recycling of scraps, the level of information you get from the OEM or cell manufacturer is not always at a sufficient level to allow direct recycling. We have seen this morning that a lot of characterization need to be concluded more than with conventional processes. And here the exchange of information is key.
It brings me back to the point that Franz is often echoing. Data exchange is actually more important than ever if we want to build a solid business case in Europe for the battery value chain, including for the recycling part, actually. Do you have other challenges that you wanted to list, or that's already quite a long list? Now for graphite. So you said that there are no targets that are ambitious enough. We don't have a target for graphite today. We don't have industrial scale recycling of graphite today, right, in Europe. What do you see as the main challenges to set up such a footprint in Europe? What is missing maybe from a policy point of view to go from not having something to slowly developing this activity in Europe, Andrea?
Yeah, because as Antoine presented, graphite recycling is very possible, and we are very confident that we can recycle both production scrap graphite and also end-of-life graphite back into the batteries. So I would, to make a bold statement here, in 2040, I believe that the main next generation anode material will be recycled graphite. It has the potential to outcompete virgin graphite, technically and financially, and I hope there will be a lot of silicon anodes, but I think volume-wise, recycled graphite will be bigger. So that's, of course, very good news for the Green Deal industrial plan, but and I think that will happen anyway. But as you say, there are no policies really incentivizing graphite recycling, and that can be specific targets, but it can also be on the recycling efficiency, for example. We are now discussing drafts where you can, in the latest draft, choose whether you want to include graphite or not in the calculation, which makes no sense to me. That's not an incentive. So you need to align on one way to calculate that, and graphite should definitely be a part of that, in my opinion. So the main challenge is there is no supply of graphite available for recycling today. So of course policies can speed that up, and there's limited demand, and that is also up to us. So we have to maybe teach our customers that this is a very good material. It's an immature industry.
This is quite strange because this is maybe one of the material on which we are the most exposed to the outside world. Yeah. It's kind of a strange situation.
Yeah, as we discussed in the coffee break, Fabrice, we just last week saw some new export controls on graphite between China and the US.
Yeah, so materials can become weaponized, so we have to keep an eye on it. Yeah. So Johan, a target for graphite maybe in the future, and 2040. I think that I don't know where we will be, but somebody has written down 2040 as one of your ambitious targets. So we'll come back to that. Thank you so much. Logistics. I hear from people telling me that it's actually easier to export from one European country sometimes to Asia, the black mass, and I believe this is true, rather than exporting from one country to another country, because some of them still use fax, for example, or this kind of limitations that we have. So I know that you covered this in your presentation, but maybe it would be useful to try maybe to summarize what are the main challenges that we have, logistically speaking, if we want to make recycling something that is not just theoretical, but really happening.
So the challenges identified are the safety, the legislation, and the market maturity. On the safety, I think the major challenge is the facility, the storage of lithium batteries. And also, this is something I didn't mention, but the sea transportation is something quite complicated regarding the safety, as the transportation can last about 45 days. And if something happened during the transportation, it can lead to very, very complicated situation, as the value of a ship is really, really expensive, and of course for the operators on the ship. So this is something today really complicated to organize the collection of the batteries in the island, in the different islands. On the legislation, so I think the major things is about the hazardous waste status, and this is something we will have to deal with in the coming years, as the law will be modified, and it will be considered as an hazardous waste. And the last point, the market. Of course, this is a challenge today because the volumes are low, they are unforeseen, but we think also that it will change in the coming years, and I think it will be improved, especially regarding the volumes which are low today. It will be with the year, the volumes will grow, and it will come easier and easier regarding this point. But today, this can be a challenge.
Just one question that is crossing my mind. We talk more and more about battery swapping. discussed in the past with France about that. Does it bring extra logistical challenges if the model of battery swapping would be gaining traction in Europe, like it's gaining a lot of traction in China, by the way?
This is a good point, effectively. I think this really an issue for the car maker. There are only a few car makers who use today this swapping method. But I think this is more an internal issue of the car maker than something for the global market. But if it's come to be something usual, then we will have to deep dive and find solution.
France, I don't know if you want to react.
Yeah, this is addressing a few heads of mine. One, of course, the ACEA one, because we at ACEA were often talking also on battery swapping, but we did raise this topic also in Working Group 5 Batteries Europe as a challenge to tackle. But there is a kind of, and I've been with Frank Kindermann from NIO recently on stage. We have had a good debate. BMW being on the one end of the, let's say, high integration, and NIO being on the other side of battery swapping, was quite interesting. And it was, in the end, even not said. It was kind of harmonized, even this is a completely different approach, because everyone has its benefits. And so NIO decided to go this way with a lot of capital and other objectives. We try to come from an engineering point of view and say highly integration is an enabler for efficiency. So this is our way forward, and I think this is also in terms of safety and so on, very good. There are some disadvantages, of course, but nevertheless, this is the way forward. And we from ACEA, this is the Club of the Automakers, we are convinced that swapping is definitely a part of the battery world of the future, but it's more linked to commercial vehicles because looking at these light vehicle trucks, for example, or even heavy duty trucks, you have these 200-liter fuel tanks on the side, which you easily can change during the load and unload of the goods. And additionally, there are some spillover effects for the grid on this area, because if you manage to get down or to cut down your peak performance that you need from the grid, it also decreases the costs dramatically. For example, we did it for the plant in Leipzig. The batteries being stored before installed in the car are used as a stationary storage. And this brought alone in Leipzig the cost of the grid connection without any payment for energy. Only the connection is 100,000 euros less due to this stock that we now use to reduce the peaks. And I think so there are applications which are more valid to have integrated system, which is also supporting the grid in another way, because you don't need to charge the batteries with 300 kilowatt or something. Even a megawatt is for commercial vehicles already out now, and this is it. So there are some applications which are really very, let's say, valid for this topic, and others aren't, and it depends on the use case in the end.
I have to say, I never thought about the grid dimension in the battery swapping, but that's very interesting to put into the debate. Now I'm coming back to Lomartov. So we heard that indeed battery waste seems to be leaving Europe. I think we have to recognize it. What do you think we could put in place in order to reduce this, or maybe even stop it, but at least reduce it to sufficient extent that it can stay in Europe and actually make the case for battery recycling capacities to actually be developed here?
Yeah, that's the question. There are some measures already foreseen to prevent this, like the regulations to prevent illegal export of waste. All these material recycling targets can also contribute, or at least theoretically can contribute, and we need to recycle inside Europe. But yeah, the question is that we need to increase recycling capabilities, because if we don't have these recycling capabilities here, we need to export. There is no other solution. And to have these recycling capabilities, so there is need to invest in these new recycling plants, also in research and development for more efficient infrastructure, maybe local hubs for local recycling, or at least disassembly, and optimize the logistics. Because one of the things we also saw in our LCA study was that the recycling outside Europe, despite the transport, is more cost effective, more profitable. So we need to increase the capabilities and make something that works really well and in a cost-effective way. And this might require at the beginning also some support, some economic incentives for the recycling, like subsidies for this local recycling, rewards to the use of recycled materials to start moving the market. And yeah, this kind of things until we have a system that works at a scale and that is sustainable economically by itself.
So any hard line on saying battery waste cannot leave Europe anymore? This is not something that you would be promoting. A hard line which says battery waste stays in Europe. This is not something you would be promoting as a solution, or it's too difficult to put in place.
No, I don't think so. Indeed, what we show is that if we have plants with high capacity, they can be competitive, and by integrating advanced technology or even the direct recycling, which is still in a premature stage, we can have feasible solutions. But at the moment, what we need is to reach economies of scale and some support to do so.
It feels a bit like a chicken and the egg problem, and I always come back now again to France. Sorry, France, but it's about
that's what I'm here for.
If there would be data exchange and strategies exchange between the different players in the value chain, maybe this issue could also be tackled better, because those who want to recycle, they say, I don't have recycling capacities in Europe. So of course they need to find a solution, and we cannot blame them for that. And those who have the waste, they say, well, those who want to recycle, they say, yes, but there is no input, so why should I invest? And because of this chicken and the egg, we're a bit running into a wall. So it's also, again, a pleading for more exchange up and down the value chain in a safe space, if you can build on that.
Safe space is a good word, but I think the safe space has even a broader objective. And I think the reason that production scrap is considered as SLQ content is already an enabler. We have significant numbers then to talk about, even though there's no post-consumer scrap already here. And I think this is really, let's say, fueling somehow the business for recycling. And in the end, because some say, why is production scrap considered? Therefore, one thing is you will have production scrap, and if this uptake in electromobility is growing, the part of scrap is also growing, and it's more than the ones batteries coming back from the market. But as economical operator, in the end, we really try to bring down the scrap rate to almost zero if possible. The more realistic target is 3 to 5%. But only this 3 to 5% in this growing market are really helping the recyclers to get a kind of sustainable business, which then can be used as step one for the investment, and then be extended if there's the mass market coming from the, let's say, post-consumer scrap. And it's also very necessary to have this kind of starting point, which mean there's a factory, but this is not fully occupied already, or it's just an extended pilot line. I don't know, you know what I mean? To really have also this impact from research on the improvement of the factories of tomorrow and the day after, to really get the CO2 down, the costs down, the volume, and the great materials out. This is all you need to usually start on a smaller scale, and then and this smaller scale is already a big share of materials coming back, pushing and giving some money into the recycler's hands. And then this execution and this business really helps to develop, complemented by R&D, to have a hopefully successful closed loop material supply chain in Europe.
Thank you, Franz. Justo, if you want to react, because you are the recycler here on the stage, so feel free to step in, obviously. Huh?
I think effectively, as I mentioned previously, that if we want to have an efficient recycling business, we need to have access to the material, and so battery must remain in Europe, or perhaps at the beginning it could be perhaps who have mixed with material coming from outside. But in any case, we have to support this industry to start and to be ready at the right moment when the amount of battery that will be recycled will be enough for all the industrial.
Okay. We have the Clean Industrial Deal coming up. Normally it takes 100 days, I understood. So I think we should not forget to voice the messages to the Commission. Before going to Johan, I just have another question to Franz. The OEMs, of course, they invest into battery recycling from a competence building and understanding point of view. But BMW seems to invest quite a lot, as you have said today in your presentation. So what makes the battery recycling of BMW a bit different from the other industrial players in the field? What sets you apart?
Yeah, I think the good thing is if you look at the three competence centers that we soon have up and ready, the first one, the cell competence center, is really bringing us on the edge of technology with the cell makers. And even so, everyone says Koreans and Chinese are leading edge. And that's not fake. We really improved the spec with them to have even a better result on our vehicles in the end. And probably this commitment is also a part of the success story of BMW even in these days. And we were also very aware of that this product and process development needs to go hand in hand because we just said the supply chain is now red flagged for the Chinese and Korean flagged and so on. We need to have this blue flagged supply chain from Europe. But that's all to upstream. And upstream, of course, also considers design to sustainability. And now, as we have established this, and this is equipped with workers, and we have now the Neue Klasse more or less in front of the door running. We would like to do the next step in recycling and really because we see also from a geopolitical point of view, from the regulatory point of view, and also from our three strategic pillars. One of it was circularity, that we really are committed to make this happen and try to get as much as secondary material as possible. For the new batteries and cars to be equipped. And this center is our contribution in the improvement of recycling technology and processes as well, to spread then with the supply chain participants and having collaborations and also making kind of decisions or recommendations for the investments to come for a successful recycling business.
Thank you, Franz. Apparently, I got the message that we speak too much, so it's always a good sign, actually. But we will maybe finish this round of questions before taking the Q&A with you, Johan. So, from a battery recycling R&I point of view, of course, we have some indications of what we want to do in the BEPASRIA, but we also have messages coming from the floor here. How do you look at it? So, what do you think are the big topics to address when it comes to recycling R&I? And of course, the last question that we always have is there going to be enough money to support that? But that's up to you to answer this question.
Okay, I'll try to be as short as possible. All very good points that have been mentioned. I think from an R&I point of view, we already indicated that we need to get ready for this whole zoo of different battery chemistries, battery configurations, cell types and everything, which is going to be very complex, of course. That's also one of the reasons why for instance, solid state projects, we already ask the consortium to think about the dismantling and the recycling of the batteries to anticipate this. Furthermore, I think the economic aspect is going to be very important because this is going to drive the tipping point between second life or recycling. If it is expensive or even a lossy process to recycle, there will be more of an incentive to reuse these batteries in a second life application. And then finally, everything needs to be as clean as possible. That is going to be our biggest distinction point regarding to the rest of the world, but also just to help the social acceptability in Europe, because it's not very sexy to have a recycling plant in your backyard. So we need to make it as smooth and as painless as possible to get it installed and up and running. And the money, yes, my crystal ball, I left it at home, but but no, I think the realization is there that batteries are really crucial for Europe, and I think we can count on continued support, at least at the same level that we have now.
And not just from the Commission, but also from the member states. Huh? I mean,
Yes.
the cancellation of the
different
battery for
sources.
fuel in Germany is an example that
Yep.
we should not have in other countries, obviously.
Yeah, the Innovation Fund will complement as well. We have this 3 billion that is being made available. So yeah, there will be different contributions being merged into a big package.
Okay, the more the better, I would say. Now I have to move to some questions from the chat, but I don't see questions in the chat, Elisabetta. So there are no questions in the chat. Okay, that's even better. Well, I don't know how to say that. How much time do we have left? Oh, so we should close. Okay, so I had another question, but it will be for the next, unless somebody wants to give a closing statement.
No, it's not
Quickly.
a closing statement. I just want to add, because I think it wasn't really on the table right now in the presentations and also in this discussion here in the panel, is the social acceptance. We recently invested in a plant, starting to build it now in Bavaria, on building batteries in Germany and for our plants in Germany. And the greatest threat we had, next to the permission topics, of course, was hopefully we do get the social permission.
No, but
because
it's
the
important.
neighbors need to really, as you said, the backyard, need to accept it. And we've seen good projects failing because of the social acceptance. And I think this is also a topic. I don't know how to tackle this in general for us as Europeans, but this is something we really need to consider, because we can have the biggest ideas, the best plans, the best business plan, but then in the end, the social acceptance says, no, not in our town.
I have a recommendation to close the session. We're all going to be at many Christmas dinners, and there's always somebody who's going to talk to you about batteries. Just bring the good messages about batteries, and it helps with the social acceptance. You know, one stone at a time. So,
but if you want a social acceptance of your plant, you have to invest in the north of France, because we have for our 2 plants in Dunkerque. So we have the obligation to have a public hearing, and so we receive the public are very happy with all this investment, not only for from Orano, but also for Vercors and so other gigafactory, and so they are really the public accept really this new industry. So come in France.
maybe Respect should make a map of public acceptance across Europe, and then you know where to invest. I don't know. Okay, so we will maybe conclude. So thanks a lot for the panel, for the quite engaged conversation. I think we could have spoken maybe a bit more, but Elisabetta has set the time to be finished now. So thank you so much for those that were online following us, and also in the room. And I wish you a nice continuation of the day. Bye-bye.